I'll put it a different way. The kind of emotional availability that Yang has while sober, I have 2 drinks in.
Welcome back to the Life After Caltech podcast, the podcast where current and former Caltech students interview alumni to learn about their unique post-graduation pathways and how they found their own success. I'm Claire Ellison, a rising junior at Caltech, and my co-host is
Mason Smith, Page House alum, class of 2009, and current Caltech trustee. Today, our guest is Dr. Yang, another class of 2009 alum, and one of my closest friends from our time at Caltech.
Yang is now a cardiac electrophysiologist, but he didn't rush to get there. He took time to figure out what he wanted. If you're feeling a little lost or off track, this one is a good reminder that you don't have to have everything figured out right away. Now, here's our interview with Yang. So I guess the first initial questions, what was your year, your house, your major?
Okay, so just before we started, I actually had trouble remembering what year I graduated, and I had to confirm with Mason that we graduated in 2009. My name is Yang, and I graduated in 2009 with a degree in biology, and I was actually a part of both Ricketts and Page House.
These are good houses.
House.
Having a current Ricketts member and a Page alum, I think that speaks to us. I guess we can start off lighthearted. I feel like could be a harder question since you did forget what year you graduated. Just like a good, funny memory while at Caltech.
I mean, I do remember a lot of Mason's roommates.
What? I don't. Okay, go ahead.
There was Ryan.
Oh,
With
yeah.
the Tibetan throat singing.
I love all my roommates, but some of them had some quirks. Yeah, there's a solid 2 weeks where he was really into. It was some form of throat singing. I don't think the particular nationality matters as much as it was that it was throat singing. So you can imagine like what it would be. I can't even pretend to replicate it. I think I would break my audio equipment. But yeah, it was not a fun 2 weeks. He was a good guy overall, but like definitely had a couple of quirks that weren't my favorite. That was top of the list. Yeah, thanks for remembering that.
Okay, I guess moving on. I guess you went to med school after Caltech. I think that's such a brave choice. I know the concerns about GPA and like just the rigor and just like the structure of Caltech seems really difficult. So how was that?
I think the standard line is there's definitely easier ways to get where I have, but I mean, I don't regret any of it. I did not go to med school immediately after graduation. I was definitely very burnt out, and I spent 2 years being a research associate in a lab at UCLA, kind of recharging my batteries before applying again and then getting into med school.
Like you came into Caltech knowing you eventually wanted to do med school, right?
Yeah. The reason I thought I was going to do med school was because I come from a family of doctors. My grandfather on my mom's side was a surgeon. My mom was a surgeon. And I just thought, okay, that's what I want to be. I really love my grandpa. I love what he did. And he seemed to help a lot of people. And I thought that's what I was going to do. For some people, it doesn't turn out that what you thought you wanted to do as a kid is what makes you happy. And luckily for me, it did end up working out. But I did go into Caltech knowing that that's what I wanted to do, which in hindsight, again, not the most optimal choice.
Interesting. I guess, you mentioned, I don't know if this is going to be a sore topic, but in the sense that you said reapply to med school after 2 years. Did it not work out the first time, or were you just really feeling that burnout and you wanted the break?
I'm not sure if I said reapply, but I did not apply to med school. Going into my senior year, I think I was too burnt out. And at that time, I don't think, in hindsight, I would not have done well in med school had I just come out of Caltech.
You think you think you would have like gotten in, but just not done well at med school? Or you think you would have not gotten in?
I think I could have gotten in, but there was definitely a lot of burnout for me, and I don't think I would have done well.
How scary was it in the face of just not going immediately into the next step? I've talked to a lot of current seniors that aren't like, I feel like the transition period of something else other than straight industry or straight grad school or straight med school is somewhat scary to people. Did you have that concern, or do you have it pretty lined up afterwards?
Nothing was lined up. It was definitely one of those things where when you go through an intense experience like that, I just knew that if I had tried to do something else like that for another year, I wasn't going to be able to do it. And there was no plan. There was no plan other than, okay, I've got to make it to graduation, and then I'll figure it out from there.
How did you find support in those moments? And how would you give advice to someone who's also in that situation?
I mean, there was definitely a lot of support from both my friends and my family. You know, there are moments where you lose faith in yourself. And that's when you really lean on both friends and family for that moment.
How long did it take you after graduating to figure out what your next step was going to be?
I think it took me a good year of just being away from that before I gain more confidence in myself and my own abilities and say, hey, I see all these other guys that are going to med school. I think I'm just as smart. I'm just as motivated. I'm just as kind as those people are. I can do it. It took a year, and then that's when I decided to apply again.
Like I know that you said that when you came into Caltech, you're like, I'm going to be a doctor. You followed it through and you continued on. I am curious if things have changed in I guess 10, 15 years. How many other people were going in pre-med with you?
There was a Caltech pre-med association, and I believe there was an advisor that actually was helping us guide through some of this. It's funny because right now I'm a cardiac electrophysiologist. It's one of the most sub-specialized things that you can do in medicine. We train for 8 additional years after medical school, and 2 other people from our class are also EPs. So there is definitely something that draws us to that, I guess.
2 other people in your class that do the same specialty as you. So it's me to wonder, did Caltech change what you wanted from your career? Did it make you more leaning towards a certain type of research or anything?
I think for a lot of people who graduate from Caltech, there are certain medical fields that are exposed more to technology that I feel like we just naturally gravitate towards. I see a lot of former Caltech grads becoming radiologists, where you look at imaging all day. Cardiac electrophysiology, you're just thinking of the heart as a circuit board and soldering so that was an easy thing for us to grasp. And I think that's why we like it a lot.
Did you figure that out at Caltech, or was it once you got to med school, you explored the different kind of fields more and kind of learned about it then?
There was a lot. I definitely did not figure this out, mostly through med school. I think it was my 4th year of med school. I met somebody who was like, oh, you graduated from Caltech. You like all this engineering stuff. You should check out EP. And I had no idea what that was. It's one of the smallest specialties. And I just found an EP and I was like, hey, I kind of want to watch what you do. And actually, I watched an ablation that lasted about 5 hours. And my first thought was, oh my God, this is so boring. I don't know why I would want to do this. But I explored more in my residency. And it's a combination of there's a big puzzle solving component that uses a lot of logic. And that's what attracted me to it. And it's a procedure that can immensely change people's outcomes.
I guess changing gears a little bit, I have heard rumors that you played basketball at Caltech.
Yes, that's partly why I was part of Page House. There were a lot of my former teammates who were there. I played 3 years. I was looking this up because, again, it's been over 15 years ago. We were part of the 2007 team that broke our Division III losing streak that lasted for over 200 games.
How meaningful was that to you? I feel like I hear about that every so often here. It's definitely still talked about.
Oh, that was definitely one of the highlights. Believe it or not, people did rush the court.
I don't think I was at this game. I could not imagine a bunch of attackers rushing a court for any reason. I guess winning after that streak, you probably could, but
yeah, when you haven't won in over 200 games, we thought it was going to come down to a nail biter. Okay. And then we win by 1 or 2 points. We beat the crap out of Bard College by almost 30 points. And it was not in doubt from after the first half that we were going to win. It was incredibly surreal.
That sounds really, I don't know, that sounds really nice. And then how did the seasons go after that? It was you got Bard College. And like, well, at least we got that one.
I think that year we had beat another school, but the SCIAC, our conference losing streak, lasted until after I graduated. Funny story. I remember looking at our schedule my sophomore year. One of the schools we were playing against was Gallaudet, which was a school for the deaf. And I just thought to myself, well, if we haven't broken our losing streak before then, there's no good outcome. You either break your 200 plus losing streak against a school for deaf kids, or you lose to a bunch of deaf kids.
Either way.
I think that's a lose-lose.
You looked at it and you're like, it's time for change. It's time to start training for real.
Real motivator.
We broke our losing streak before then.
The real question, how many points did you get in that game? Did you get Yang? How many points did you get? Yeah. Do you remember?
I don't think I scored that game. I think I maybe played 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Were you recruited for basketball? I assume so.
No, I was not. I played for 2 years in high school and then decided to focus on my academics junior and senior year. And during my visit for pre-frosh weekend to Caltech, I was interested in basketball. And that's when I met the coach. This is one of the few places where you go, well, I played 2 years in high school and I'm interested. And hey, I'm going to do this.
I actually had a meeting today with a women's soccer coach. And they were like, you know what you should do? You should play soccer. So from your point of view, how worth it was it for you to play sports during your time here?
For me, I think it was incredibly valuable because I wanted to do something outside of school. And junior, senior year, I gave up on playing basketball in high school, and I always had kind of regretted it. So when I came to college, I was like, okay, no regrets. I'm going to do it.
You stopped playing senior year, though.
I got a concussion.
Oh, players recovering from a concussion, so she empathizes very closely.
It was a very scary moment because you end up with, I remember having short-term memory loss. I remember trying to just read a paragraph, and then by the end of the paragraph, I don't even remember how it started. It was one of those things that was incredibly, incredibly scary. And it took a lot of time for me to really get back to normal, So, and I stopped playing basketball, and it was definitely a tough time.
How do you think you managed your work during that time?
I really don't remember much at all about that period. A lot of stuff is very hazy from 15 years ago, but truly from when I got my concussion to just about 6 to 8 months later, I don't have a lot of memories from that time.
Did you get it while playing basketball, or do you not know?
Oh, I remember a little bit about that. It was during practice, and one of my teammates tried to do a swim move where he ran straight at me and then was supposed to go over me, except his elbow caught me right in the face. Ooh. as he was running full speed.
Ooh.
As someone who got absolutely smacked in the face, I know that was probably not a good feeling.
Yeah, I think the scariest thing about that was the feeling, the fear. Am I going to get back to the way I was before? Am I not going to be smart anymore? And I think that was something that already being a Caltech was already gnawing at you, because I feel like everybody who goes to Caltech was extremely smart, extremely high achieving in high school. And that ends up being a huge part of your identity. If that's how you see yourself as who you are. I'm the smart person. I'm the person who's great at math or physics or gets all A's, and it's relatively effortless. You come to Caltech where you're surrounded by all these other incredibly awesome people, and you're no longer the smartest person. And that part of your identity already gets really, really threatened and challenged in a lot of ways. And on top of that, getting that concussion, oh man, that was definitely a tough time. And who knows, maybe I just don't want to remember those times when I felt down like that. But I really can't recall a lot of things. Part of it is time, part of it is I think the concussion.
I remember like right after my concussion, it kept getting worse to the point of me having to go to the ER. So I needed a scan to make sure I wasn't bleeding. And like I was like signing my discharge papers because I was fine. It was all good. And I forgot I couldn't sign my name. And like being in the face of that and like in the middle of some of my hardest terms, it was just definitely it was an experience to say the least. And I guess I can say I'm on the tail end. I guess it's a more painful time. My headaches are worse, but like I can think now, and I think it's a nice feeling compared to feeling like drunk all the time. But yeah, I hope that maybe even if I don't remember these days, these months, that while I'm in it, I feel like I'm very actively in it.
Just wait 15 years, everything will become hazy.
Maybe so there's some parts of Caltech that I'll be glad that I don't remember. Oh, I was gonna pivot it a little bit. Since we're on topics of hard times at Caltech, what would you think your hardest time was?
I'm curious about too. The hardest time besides the concussion, which I'm guessing was the hardest, but maybe not.
I think there's a couple of times where I do remember crying at Caltech. I don't even remember what spurred the crying. Just thinking back to it, going back to the whole self-worth and identity thing, I think for me, looking back, I've put so much of my self-worth and identity on being the smartest kid in the room and being that person, and having that belief be annihilated when you have so many people who are so much smarter than you was really, really, really difficult. And I just remember crying at certain times about that. Now, I will say that was probably one of the most valuable things that I ever got out of Caltech, because there's so much more to who you are than the being smart. And it took Caltech removing that in order for me to find these other identities, these other values, things that I value about myself, that's not just based on how smart I am. I don't think I would have done that had I gone anywhere else.
How did that, kind of thinking compare to medical school? Because I imagine like there's some stereotype of like med students or people wanting to go to med school, like having a similar kind of like sort of very driven, like maybe very GPA oriented, very much like focused on their academics of that thing, or like that's how they define themselves. Like thinking about your kind of med student cohort to compare it to Caltech, how is it similar or different?
I mean, in some ways, it's very similar because, when you make it to medical school, it's a cohort of very high performing, achievement oriented people. You make the mistake of looking at what is the most prestigious thing and thinking that's the thing to go after instead of what will make you happy. And I think it was helpful for me going into med school with that in mind, not just what's the most prestigious, but what will make you happy. And with that, I think I landed by an EP by almost luck, and I'm incredibly happy every day doing what I do.
I don't think we asked, where did you go to med school?
Oh, that's actually a good story. I went to UCSD for med school. I'll tell this. I still feel like I got into med school by accident. I was on the wait list at UCSD. And one day I just got a phone call from their admissions office. Hey, we had an interview. We had someone who was supposed to interview with us 2 days from now. Cancel. We were looking on our wait list and you are right there. Do you think you can go? Do you think you can make it in 2 days? I said, yes, of course. And so I drove down, interviewed with them. 2 weeks later, got an acceptance, canceled the rest of my other interviews. And, that's life.
Why did you cancel all of the other ones?
I didn't want to move outside of California, and it's San Diego. I think it's hard to say no to San Diego.
I guess on that note, just I guess out of personal curiosity, I've heard that you moved to Arkansas. I guess you did leave California. How's the South?
So I'm in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I'm truly loving it, enjoying it. Fayetteville is there's always trade-offs, right? There's things that you get in a smaller community that you wouldn't get in a big city, and there's things that in a big city that you can't get in a smaller community. And goes back to know who you are, find out what makes you happy. Fayetteville, we have I say small college town. This is the second largest city in Arkansas. We're probably 100,000 people. The University of Arkansas is here. I work at one of the hospitals here. There is a personal feel to it where my patients I see at the grocery store. One of my neighbors has AFib that I found out while chatting with her on the sidewalk, and that's how she came to see me. And it's really gratifying sometimes to have that personal connection, and that to me was worth all of it.
What's it called? I'm from Mississippi, so the small town environment really resonates with me. I feel like, I don't know, being in California was a pretty big step, but I mean, stepping into Caltech campus, I feel like it also has that like somewhat like a small community, which has been really nice, I would say.
Yeah, my high school was the biggest place I ever went. I joke that every step I went into training, my cohort went in half. 2,000 people for high school, 1,000 for college, 500 for medical school, and it kept going down and down and down.
I feel like that's a nice way to be. I don't know. It depends on what your values, right? Like you already mentioned that, but I don't know. I think the specialization, having a small community, is really valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's why, or else, if I didn't value that, I wouldn't be here.
What do you miss the most about California? I feel like I'm rubbing it in a little bit.
What do I miss the most about California besides my friends and family?
Good answer.
Is probably Chinese food. If I'm craving Chinese food here, I have to go down to our co-op, buy Chinese groceries, and cook it myself. I can't just go to a restaurant and get what I want.
I feel like it's a pretty good answer. I think I'd miss if I left California, I'd probably miss the food more than it's probably tied with friends, I'd say. Friends and the food and then friends, or friends and the food. I'm not sure which order, but pretty similar.
I guess we've talked about the pits of Caltech and just like the hardest parts. But did you have like a peak time here that you would say?
I mean, I think we covered some of the peak times. I think breaking the 200 plus game losing streak was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were so many. There's a lot of fond memories that I have of Caltech, and they are all connected to the people. Going back to you're saying having a tight-knit community, I think you feel you form a lot closer relationships than you do at other points in your life. And almost all of my fondest memories involve my friends and Ricketts and Page, just hanging out in Mason's room. Those are my fondest memories.
What's it called? This is the first time I've talked to a Ricketts alum on here. I don't know. I wonder how things have changed in the past 15 years. And I go to ask, and I'm like, I've heard about how things were 15 years ago. I probably shouldn't ask on a podcast.
You should definitely ask.
I think I don't know what your perception of Ricketts is now, but for me, it was, the self-appointed house of misfits and outcasts. And I feel like the spirit of that hasn't changed. How you're able to express that might change every now and then. Some say maybe for better or for safer. There's some things that you're not allowed to do anymore. But I think at the core of it, that's still what the house is to a lot of people. So I don't think that's changed at all.
I would definitely say we're still the self-appointed misfits and outcasts. These kids, I think we rotated in some frosh that are they're outdoing us. I don't know. It's like, so I guess the Ricketts the environment that Ricketts like caters to has not died yet. But
No,
yeah,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, yeah. Are there any other ways that you engage with like the Caltech community? I guess the community that you had while here, or like I guess Caltech in general.
I mean, I will say I think my friends from Caltech are some of the closest ones that I've had. I've actually been pretty bad about keeping in touch with people because I recently finished training. So I moved to Arkansas and kind of disappeared for about a year while I was starting my new job. While I was in California, in San Diego, it was so much easier to just drive up and see everybody.
That makes sense. I hope to stay in contact with some of the hooligans that I've made friends with in Ricketts' house. I don't know. I think it's like maybe it's not the same for you, or at least with everyone from Caltech, but the trauma bond that comes from going to this school, I feel like it really brings people together, and it takes a certain person like thrive and not even thrive, I guess, survive this type of environment. So I really cherish that.
I joke around that it's like people you went to prison with. There's only that's an understanding that only people who have gone through that experience can understand.
Yeah, we didn't go to a college. We were institutionalized. That's
It's true. I feel like somebody is in the midst of it, in the midst of my all-nighter recovery right now. I feel like it is something that only people who came here can truly understand. Like, how am I gonna explain inner houses? How am I gonna explain these terrible sets? Like ACM 95, no one else is gonna get it.
what was that? What the all nighter was for? What were you doing? This all nighter for?
Put a final, and then I also had reports to do. I took too much of a break. I was like, it's only like 2 things. So then it was Thursday night, and I was like, it's 2 things. And that's how it kind of went down.
Yeah, I when people ask me, it was like, what was the hardest part of going through everything? I think there were definitely times during my medical training that were more stressful and more high stakes. But the most stressed I've ever felt was when I was at Caltech. During my medical training, I remember being the only cardiologist on call for an 800-bed hospital and going, you have to respond to everyone who might have a heart attack. That is clearly objectively more stressful because if you make a mistake, someone may die. However, at that point, I had been through medical school. I already been through 3 years of residency, and they prepared me for moments like that. And I was more emotionally mature by that point. However, when you're going into Caltech, you're 18, you're 19, you're 20. Sometimes this is the first time that a lot of us struggle, and I did not have the tool sets to deal with it. And if it wasn't for my friends, just thinking back to it, man, definitely leaning on them was how we made it through.
You talked about like finding a different value system, finding another way to like find your self-worth besides just being high achieving. And like, certainly for, yeah, like you said it already. And for me too, like having friends that can ground you, like definitely helps a lot with that. Was there anything else that you think kind of helped through your Caltech experience?
I think in hindsight, the thing that probably would have helped the most was going to therapy. Because I think it's about having these coping mechanisms and ways to deal with feeling like that you're worthless, that your identity and your self-worth is under attack by all these things, and how to develop skills to work your way through that. I wish I was taught that earlier.
Like, was it something that it's someone said like maybe you should try it and you were just like, nah, I don't need it? Or did you just like never like think of it as something that was available? Like what do you think prevented you from taking advantage of that?
Part of it was not even knowing the language and recognizing that this is a problem, and there was no even concept of you're feeling bad about yourself for these things. There are ways that you can work through that. These emotions that you're feeling, emotions are not rational. And just even understanding that concept, I think was didn't have that.
I'm going to throw in one other thing, maybe slightly more lighthearted. I think we were talking about this. Do you remember graduation, or your? I think you had something a little different for your graduation from most.
Oh, this is the cherry on top of the sundae. That was my Caltech experience. So most people when you open that diploma, it's like, oh great, this is what you work for. It's 4 years of blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, maybe a little bit of blood. And I get this paper that says you owe the library $20. You can get your diploma after you pay your library fines.
That's so funny. I think I would frame that one instead.
I think by the time you really want your diploma.
That's
you can
true,
ask for a
that's true.
copy, but I
Okay,
don't.
there's a difference between framing it, because I've also gotten my diploma after I paid the fine. But yeah, I guess that's really amusing.
That was just like the one last hurdle that you had to go through in order to get your diploma. I felt like this was just like, you see the finish line and then they just
I feel like they could have done that with so much less pizzazz. Like, they wanted to get you. They wanted to scare you into paying the library fine. I feel like that's how we're
Yes.
scaring our seniors into paying dues. It's just like it's like, you want to leave? You want to get paid back for ditch day? You better. Anyways, on the topic of graduation, they're graduating in approximately, I guess, 8 days. Do you have any advice to seniors that are leaving out, going into the world, have no idea what's going on, I guess?
I think the best piece of advice I have is everyone will be going on their own journey. Some people get there a little bit earlier, some people take some time, but everyone goes on their own journey, and it's going to take you where it's supposed to take you. If you look at everyone else who's high achieving, that may not be your journey. It maybe you just need to take a little detour. Everything that's happened in my life has led me to where I am now, where I'm an electrophysiologist living in Fayetteville, Arkansas. I love my job. I love my life. I'm happily married. And if any one of those detours didn't happen, I would not be where I am right now. And a lot of them, there was a lot of pain, but pain also is growth. So that's my piece of advice. Don't look at other people's journeys. You have your own to go on. And also pay your library fines.
It's important. I will remember that.
We've talked about that a couple of times on the podcast, like that as much as you plan, life throws you curveballs. Some of it is kind of out of your control. Do you feel like when you were if you were telling yourself that at 18, do you feel like you'd buy it, or do you think you would have believed it, or would the 18-year-old version of yourself have pushed back on that?
I mean, that's wisdom that comes with time, right? I don't know if I would have believed that at the beginning. Maybe enough people tell you, at least you keep it stored away in the back of your mind.
That's fair.
If you have enough voices that say, hey, it will be fine, it's got to be worth something.
It was great talking to you as always.
It was very great talking to you. Like I said, I don't know. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm not supposed to have a lot of house pride. I'm supposed to hate my house. But it's really nice talking to a Ricketts mom. It's exciting, and it's like to hear about your journey and everything.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for coming on.
Something I truly enjoyed about our conversation with Yang is how he put detours in a good light. He decided to take time off after Caltech to recover from burnout before he went to medical school. And without that path, who knows where he would be right now? Maybe not in the South, which would be such a terrible reality, in my opinion. Mason, how do you feel?
I think it's okay if you didn't end up in the South. I think it'd be fine either way. But yeah, no, I think it's really useful to highlight. I think Yang's a good example of someone who rolled with the punches and didn't let kind of changes of plan stop him from achieving what he wanted to achieve. Because I was in grad school while Yang was sort of figuring out what to do before med school. So, we actually talked a decent amount. You could tell that like it wasn't the sort of plan that he had in mind in school, but I always remember him taking it in stride. It never felt like he was disappointed. I think he just realized that it was going to be the path that he was going to have to take was just different than the sort of standard like A to B to C kind of thing. And he talked about like having some thoughts about like where is this going, but I think he was able to push through that pretty quickly.
I think the way you pitched that was really funny in the sense of, yeah, I don't think he was disappointed in becoming a medical doctor. Like that it wasn't like
Well, no, I mean not.
just a downgrade of being this really crazy, very capable.
I mean before going to medical school, he was like working in a research lab and that kind of stuff. And I think he, that wasn't what he had planned. Yeah, obviously he isn't disappointed in what he's doing now, but yeah, I mean, I think it just some people could just say, "Oh, it didn't happen for me, so that's it." But no, that's not the path he took.
Most people I feel like currently at Caltech that I've talked to have considered the medical field, where they decided to pivot out of it and go more towards academia because they're worried about how their GPA will work in trying to get to med school. However, this podcast is a stellar example for how you don't have to have a 4.0 to be a very successful medical doctor. Not to say that their pivot isn't valid and they might not enjoy that more, but it's always a possibility, and that's something that shouldn't ever get rolled out.
Yeah, I think it's like don't let not achieving perfection get in the way of what you actually want to do. Right. Even if it's slightly questionable coming to Caltech to go to med school in the first place, which I think even Yang said, if that's what you want to do, don't let something less than a 4.3 stop you from doing it, because it's not actually what you need.
Follow your dream. Well, thank you to the audience for tuning in to this wonderful episode. I think it was a very interesting conversation about how detours can be super productive. And you can make it to med school even if you go to Caltech. And that's a lesson that I did not know before this podcast.
I think they're going to put that on Caltech's website.
Life After Caltech is brought to you by Claire Ellison, Riley Kwong, and Mason Smith, with additional production help by Pallavi Ganalan. The music is called Get Ready to Win by Pamela Yuen from the Free Music Archive under the Creative Commons license. Life After Caltech is in no way affiliated with or approved by the California Institute of Technology or any relevant associations. Thanks for listening.